The term downloadable content seems to get vaguer every year. Many moons ago, it meant additional content created after release. It was the next step from traditional expansion packs, which were separate discs containing extra content. DLC is downloadable. Trust me on that, I've done my research, and is often smaller, as expansion packs had to be, expansive and of high enough quality to justify a physical release. Now, however, publishers can toss out any old twaddle that the interns cooked up and call it a day. Okay, that's a tad pessimistic. There are some sublime examples of great DLC, but other times you'll get something that's not even worth clicking the button that says download. What do you mean first world problems? Shut up. Today we're looking at DLC that is either outright bad, offers terrible value for money, or represents shady business practices and corporate greed. Oh, and before we begin, Oblivion's Horse Armor DLC will not be making an appearance, sorry. It would have occupied all 10 spots on its own, and we'd rather have some variety. I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are the 10 worst pieces of video game DLC. Number 10. Oscorp Search and Destroy Pack, The Amazing Spiderman. While The Amazing Spider-Man sequel is certainly a worse game overall, the first one was still worth nothing more than an apathetic meh. I should clarify, as it can be quite confusing due to all the reboots, this game is the movie tie-in based on the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man film of the same name, serving also as a kind of sequel to that film, and not the Insomniac-developed one that's really good and isn't a tie-in to the Tom Holland films. Actually, I'm not sure if I clarified anything. Point is, The Amazing Spider-Man isn't an amazing game. Even so, its DLC was clearly worse, as it included one of the most pointless pieces of software in gaming history. It doesn't even have a single Metacritic review, meaning it wasn't worth the time it would take to type no on a keyboard, apparently. In fact, why am I even bothering? The pack offers, for 3 actual real American human dollary dues, 2 new minigames on Spidey's in-game phone. One of them is inspired by Snake, and the other by Space Invaders. It's basically an opportunity to pay for 2 minigames you never would have bothered with if they had been included for free from the start. But hey, at least Spider-Man can play games on his phone instead of getting anything done. Hashtag relatable, am I right, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man? Number 9. Tomb of the Lost Adventurer, Tomb Raider. Imagine this, you didn't pre-order Tomb Raider 2013. I know I just angered an executive there, but hear me out. Anyway, you didn't pre-order Tomb Raider, so you missed out on the pre-order incentive. You play through the game and enjoy it, and then you notice that there's some story DLC available for a couple of pounds. You hand over your digital representation of the Queen's finest currency, download it, and hop right back into the lush, exciting, cinematically impressive world of the game you love. Then you start the DLC section and proceed to 100% the thing in around 5 minutes. Tomb of the Lost Adventurer is far below the standards of the otherwise good Tomb Raider reboot. It expands on the game only in the strictest definition of that word, adding what amounts to a brief sequence of dull, linear, simple gameplay. Pretty bad, eh? Well, it gets worse. Many people apparently hit a bug which stopped them from finishing it. The DLC was review bombed on Steam for both being pointlessly short and broken, and this is only entry 9. Oh, feels like it's going to be a long video, doesn't it? Number 8. The Lost Archive, Assassin's Creed Revelations. Are the first-person Desmond bits of Assassin's Creed Revelations your favourite parts? No? Oh. Well, Ubisoft apparently thought they were, because in 2012 they gave us The Lost Archive. If you care, and I mean really care, about the plot of Assassin's Creed, then chances are you'll like The Lost Archive, because that's all it is. Plot exposition and some mild platforming. It plays out more like an artsy indie game, and saying that makes it sound better than it is. Cryptic, slow-paced indie games can be great. Jonathan Blow has made a career out of them, but you can't simply cram an attempt at one into a completely different genre and expect it to work. I want to stab the baddies with my stabby stab stick. Stop making me think! A large portion of Assassin's Creed fans couldn't care less about the modern day plot. Even if they enjoy a bit of puzzle platforming in their historical atrocity simulator, The Lost Archive will bore them to tears when they're 15 minutes into narrative exposition and wondering when they'll get to the fireworks factory. Number 7. Midnight Show, The Saboteur. Pandemic Studios, developers of beloved titles like the PS2 Star Wars Battlefront games, Destroy All Humans and Mercenaries Playground of Destruction, were bought out by EA in 2008. A bit over a year later, EA dissolved the studio and cut around 1,500 jobs. Post-acquisition, Pandemic released the thoroughly mediocre Lord of the Rings Conquest and equally unremarkable The Saboteur. That's unremarkable, to be clear, not bad. The stylized World War II setting is nice, and I'm sure many of you will look at it fondly in some way. I'm I'm just saying that there's a reason the rest of you forgot it existed until I brought it up just now. EA is a master of tact, and to cash in on publicity from the company it was currently killing, it released some DLC for the Saboteur which made the women in the brothel area topless. That's it. It's just a tweak to existing character models. It's horse armor with nipples. Then again, I'm sure plenty of people did download this officially released nude mod, so that's shame on us, really. You do you, I suppose. I'm not even sure we can show you the footage. Number 6. Ultimate Shortcut Bundle, Battlefield 4. Battlefield 4's Ultimate Shortcut Bundle is arguably the most infamous example when it comes to paid multiplayer shortcuts. We could include pay-to-win microtransactions as a whole on this list, but the Shortcut Bundle is essentially just that, condensed into one soul-crushing package. For £30, yes, £30, you can unlock all of Battlefield 4's multiplayer content immediately. I have to ask, why? If you aren't unlocking anything, you aren't getting better at the game as you do so. You'll get immediate access to all the content, but you'll just as immediately be slaughtered by everyone who has been playing for months in order to access the same things. It cheapens the multiplayer experience for those who played the game properly, ruins it for both those who buy their way to completion and those who don't, and it boils down to paying the game to finish itself for you. Have I mentioned who published Battlefront 4? Number 5. The Taken King, Destiny. In what is likely the most divisive entry on this list, we have the Destiny expansion, The Taken King. The thing is, even if the DLC is critically lauded, the problem with The Taken King is less about what was added and more about what was taken away. Actually, taken is in the name, so we should have seen it coming. Ideally, DLC provides more of a certain game. If you buy it, you get extra content. If you don't, you still have the base game serving as a complete experience. The Taken King, however, actively gated off content in the base game that was previously available to all players. If you still wanted to have that content you were enjoying yesterday, you'll have to pay for it today. What's more, it was a fair amount of late-game content that was suddenly locked off, meaning veteran players either had to give up on the game or cough up more money if they wanted to continue. It wasn't cheap either, and according to users, it barely added anything new. The live service model is questionable at the best of times, but you have to wonder how far publishers will actually try to push these things. I'm betting the next step is they start charging for demos. Oh, hang on, I forgot, Konami already did that. Number 4. Easy Fatalities, Mortal Kombat 10. Fatalities in Mortal Kombat have always been a challenge to pull off. They require a specific series of button commands that you'd have to memorize, then you'd have to win the match, then you'd have to execute that series of inputs correctly within a small window of time. As with everything, it got easier the more you practiced, but pulling them off was always a flourish that made your victory feel even more satisfying. So, of course, Mortal Kombat developer NetherRealm added purchasable Easy Fatality tokens to Mortal Kombat 10, which simplify the finishing moves to just pressing R2 and a face button. Let me be clear, improved accessibility options are good, but that's obviously not what the developers were going for here. If they were, they wouldn't have charged for it, and they definitely wouldn't have made these tokens consumable. That's right, easy fatalities aren't even permanent. Pull off a few showy finishing moves and you'll need to pull out your credit card again to buy more. They'll be charging for individual punches next.
Who hired this guy? What the
Number 3. Ranger Mode, Metro Last Light. Pre-order DLC isn't going away. Retailers ask publishers to include such things in order to incentivize early purchases, before the reviews come in and convince everyone to save their money. We've accepted it at this point, but publisher Deep Silver managed to do something more than a bit greedy with Metro Last Light. The marketing for the game advertised Ranger Mode. Essentially, it was a hardcore version of the game. You'd have fewer bullets, no HUD, and even more difficult combat. For fans of the first game, this was everything they could have wanted. Deep Silver even said in their ads that Ranger Mode was the way it was meant to be played. Oh, and it was only available if you pre-ordered. Offering downloads for a few extra items or costumes with pre-orders is inoffensive, but holding back an entire difficulty setting and then touting that playing the game with any other setting was inferior, well, that was a slap in the face to potential customers. Of course, Deep Silver eventually saw the error of their ways and allowed everyone to download Ranger Mode, which solved everything. Actually, my mistake. They charged another £4 for it and solved nothing. Number 2. Everything. Train Simulator 2021. This spot was originally going to be for The Sims 4 and EA's egregious approach to aggressively monetizing content that should have been there all along. But then we had a look at the Steam page for Train Simulator 2021 and oh my. I'm not going to go through all 701 items to add them all up, mainly because I don't want to, but if you scroll through the DLC, you'll see the prices hovering between a few pounds and £30. If we assume then a £13 average, that would give us an estimated total cost of £9,113. Jesus! That's not even including the game itself. Maybe at that point you just start considering the base game to be DLC on its own. You could buy a car for that much, or, start saving for an actual train. Surely this DLC must be worth it, of course. After all, who hasn't dreamed of riding the S25 Heart of Berlin Hennigsdorf to Teltow route? I, for one, had that train line poster on my wall growing up, and now I can live out my fantasy for the cost of a down payment on a home. Number 1. Episodes 19 to 22 bundle, Asuras Wrath. Retconning a game's ending via DLC is unfortunately common. Sometimes it's because the game was left on a cliffhanger, only for the sequel to be cancelled, leaving the only option for closure to be a bit of extra DLC. See, for example, Prince of Persia Epilogue. Other times, the game's ending is revised because the original wasn't good. See Mass Effect 3. The developers say, super soz, and release a free patch with a slightly more satisfying conclusion. That is understandable. Less understandable is what happened with Asuras Wrath. Capcom advertised 4 episodes of Asuras Wrath as DLC that took place after the main game, specifying to players that it constituted the game's true ending. One must ask, if this is the true ending, why wasn't it included with the rest of the story? Why ask people to pay extra for an integral piece of the basic narrative structure? Asuras Wrath isn't the first time this sort of thing has happened, and it sadly won't be the last. But as it's the most famous one, we had to give it the number 1 spot. If we didn't, because we have that much sway, maybe developers in the future would start selling us crucial opening and middle chapters of games as well. Oh, right, Final Fantasy 15. Come on guys, tell me a story, don't sell me a story!